Hey everyone, and welcome to the February 1st installment of the Dirty Leather Baseball Show here on Stadium Rant. I'm your host. My name is Doug, and I bring to you tonight the panel of our typical Dirty Leather crew. And we have different lenses from different teams across MLB. I'm a longtime Blue Jays fan, and I'm also joined, as always, by Jesse, who provides MLB analysis from the perspective of the New York Yankees. And we have Khris as well, tuning in from Boston. And Khris will bring us up to speed on the many moves that the Red Sox have made up until now this offseason. So it's 80 degrees currently in Phoenix, Arizona. So the Cactus League is definitely looking a lot more appealing than the Grapefruit League at this point in time, where it's 40 degrees in Port Charlotte, Florida, and in Fort Myers. So you can bet the pitchers and catchers in Florida, anyway, will be reporting indoors. So that's going to start next week with February the 10th, set to host or for the beginning of pitchers and catchers for spring training. So for our rants, we usually go around the table. And tonight we are going to begin with Jesse, who's going to provide his first rant. Now, sorry about the technical difficulties. I'm tuning in from Toronto by my phone. I had some audio difficulties with my computer. But anyway, at any rate, here we go. And Jesse, the floor is yours with the first rant.
Definitely. Thank you very much. Again, welcome everybody to a new season, a new wonderful season, very long season indeed. So my rant starts, of course, with the New York Yankees. They got their man, Cody Bellinger, but at basically the cost of everybody else. And what do I mean by that? Well, about a week or two ago, the Yankees signed one of their targets for the offseason, the return of Cody Bellinger, their center fielder, for a 5-year, $162.5 million contract, which, first and foremost, that's fantastic for the lineup. He was a great power hitter. He had a lot of he was a good fielder too. He was a Gold Glove fielder as well. Not this year, but in years past. So that's a really, really big benefit for the team. But the problem is that it took way too long for them to re-sign, essentially. And as a result, they missed out on numerous players. They started negotiations right after the season closed. And then they waited through November, through essentially the entirety of December and most of January. He re-signed only about a week or two ago, like I said. And during that time, a lot of players that were likely on the Yankees' radar went to other teams, such as Tatsuya Imai going to Houston and Ranger Suarez going to Boston, which we'll talk about later, and then losing out on Alex Bregman going to the Chicago Cubs. These are all players that could have helped the team in major ways. But unfortunately, the team was so focused on getting the services of Cody Bellinger back, they essentially burned the clock on pretty much every single high-profile free agent. The team needed help with starting pitching, essentially. They, again, don't get me wrong, we'll talk about that later in the broadcast, but the team did need at least a fifth starting pitcher, in my opinion, to help out with the back end of the rotation. Because again, Rodon and Cole will be out with injury. Cole recovering from Tommy John, and Rodon recovering from shoulder surgery. And they have Cam Schwittler, Max Fried, they have Will Warren, they have Luis Hill, and they just got Ryan Weathers, which is not a very strong. You can argue it's strong, at least on the front end, but on the back end, it's relatively weak. So they needed a starting pitcher. Tatsuya Imai and Ranger Suarez could have easily been really, really good signings. They did not get them because they were too busy focused on Cody Bellinger. At the same time, they needed a second contact bat. Yes, they still have Aaron Judge who hit the 331, but they needed another contact, get on base type of guy who could hit the ball into the outfield, shallow outfield, and just get men on base. Luis Arias could have been a lucrative selection, but again, you do have Ben Rice. But if you needed a real first baseman or a strong first baseman, Rice could have been your guy. Or in a dream scenario, Bo Bichette, if that all worked out. But unfortunately, that didn't happen for the Yankee fans. But again, the same issue happened. They were so focused on getting Cody Bellinger, they burned the clock out on that. At the same time, there's two other issues with that. Number one, their contract situation is more tied up than ever in 2027. If there is a season, if there's whether a half a season or 3/4 of a season, they now have $230 million among 7 contracts, which include Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, and Max Fried, to name a few. that is essentially just below the luxury tax threshold. So they don't really have a lot of room to move. And at the same time, what does that mean for Spencer Jones, who's up and coming in AAA? What happens to Jason Dominguez? Is he the fourth outfielder? What about any depth players that they want to get in the future? What's the contract situation on that? The Yankees really did not do very well this offseason. Yes, they get Cody Bellinger back. Yes, he's a big, impactful bat. Yes, he's a big glove in the outfield. Problem is that you're stuck with him now for the next 5 years, and that's going to tie up your contract situation a little more, and that might create an even worse logjam in the outfield. So that's my rant. I'm glad that the Yankees got Cody Bellinger back, but there's definitely a lot of issues going forward with this team, especially on the contract front.
Yeah, definitely some confusion. Like, where do you put Bellinger? There's gridlock in the outfield that you just described, Jesse. Perhaps Bellinger, you can throw him at first base because eventually Spencer Jones is going to have to come up. And Dominguez absolutely needs that playing time. He's still super young. So those guys have to play. I think Bellinger's probably going to get a lot of reps at first base. However, I've heard that Goldschmidt and the Yankees might be discussing uh, potentially a 1 year deal. I don't know what that would look like, but I have heard that Goldschmidt's name has again been floated around Yankees camp. I don't know if you've heard anything about that, Jesse, or if you support those sentiments, but I think that would be the wrong move because Ben Rice, as well as Bellinger, would be a good, even though they're both lefties and both left-handed throwers,
Mhm.
I think you pretty well have first base covered with those two guys. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would definitely agree with that, to be honest with you. And to bring back Paul Goldschmidt, in my opinion, would be a mistake. I think you have to let Ben Rice develop at the position. I think Paul Goldschmidt as well is well past his prime. He's going to be 38 next year or 39 next year. He's not the MVP candidate or the MVP winner he once was. So, and he's not the same guy that he was with the St. Louis Cardinals. So the best thing that the Yankees could probably do is just skip over him and let the cheaper, younger option play first base and see how he does and build on his 2025 momentum, because he was actually not terrible hitting the ball. It's
No.
just that the ball never really hit the outfield, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Anything to add to that, Chris, or your rants? You ready to go ahead with
Yeah.
yours?
Well, yeah. So I think there's a couple things I'm gonna say, and actually one of the things I'm gonna say is leads right into my rant. But I think as a Red Sox fan, I have been completely unworried about the Yankees offseason. If anything, I've actually been happy about it, which tells you sort of all you need to know about the Yankees offseason. Because if I'm a Red Sox fan happy about it, that's probably not a good sign. But what I find interesting that was pointed out about, the Yankees being up near the luxury tax with their larger contracts and not having a lot of room to play around is funny to me for the Yankees. And that sort of leads into my rant, which has to do with the Dodgers as well, who have not had, they just keep spending and they don't seem to really care about the luxury tax. And for the longest time, I really wasn't on board the Dodgers are ruining baseball bandwagon. Like, yeah, I got it that they were getting all these high priced players and everybody was going to them. And it was frustrating and annoying. But in my mind, it was they're doing what they should be doing. They're playing within the rules and they're spending money that they should spend. And they're reinvesting what their fans are giving back to them. And, at the same time, they're capitalizing on players like Otani and the deals that he can bring in and marketing and all that to make up the money in that regard. But after this offseason, I've shifted. I just think it's become so absurd. The Dodgers are just so on paper and assuming health, but I just feel like at this point it's a foregone conclusion that it's the Dodgers and then everybody else is scrumming for second place. And I do think that ruins the game of baseball. I think what made the NFL so exciting this year was how much parity there was. And I talked about this on my other podcast, not just an NFL podcast, how, the parity has really made the playoffs very exciting. You didn't know who was going to make it. ultimately, obviously, it was the Patriots and Seahawks who were arguably the best in each of their divisions. I mean, each of their conferences. But the entire season, most fans were able to tune in because at any given week, any team could beat any team. And I worry right now with what the Dodgers are doing that that's going to take away from fans from everywhere else. And I've always been on the salary floor argument. I think that MLB has to come up with a salary floor because otherwise there's no way owners are going to spend. And it's just ridiculous for teams and fans of teams like the Pirates and the Marlins and some of these other teams, Oakland for a while, although now that they're moving to Vegas, they've been forced to spend a little bit more. But teams like that, I just don't think it's fair to their fans. But I'm starting to believe that there needs to be a harder salary cap as well. And I don't want to do that to punish teams that are doing the right thing, but I just think there needs to be more competitive balance at this point. And so that's sort of my rant. You know, I've really changed my opinion on that, and I hate that I have, truthfully, because I've always sort of been, if you have the money, spend it. I'm okay with that. But at this point, it's getting to the point where, you know, no other team can compete even in free agency because of all these deferrals that the Dodgers are able to build into their structure. And because they're such a good team, players are willing to take those deferrals. And I don't know. It just seems to have gotten to the point where it's too skewed. And I think something needs to be done about it. So
Yeah, I agree.
that's sort of my rant.
These
I
these
agree.
these deferrals need to be factored in somehow to the CBT, and you know, those penalties need to be enforced with these mega contracts that just go way into the future. Because do these clubs really have that amount of capital when you factor in the deferrals? Like, what are their financials? Like, we're not privy to that information, right? As fans, we don't know really, can they even handle this all this deferred money that's spread out over the next 30, 40 years in some cases, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And also to piggyback off that, Chris, I would feel a little bit better if when they sign guys like Kyle Tucker and take the top names off the free agent board, Kyle Tucker and Nate Diaz, if somehow they could spread their prospects over and around the rest of MLB. But that's not happening. Keith Law of The Athletic came out with the system's rankings earlier last week, and the Dodgers rank number 2 in terms of prospects, overall prospects in all of MLB. So not only do they have this mega, the non-existent salary cap, it seems. They blow right past the CBT. They got deferred money laid out for till the end of time, really. But they've also got an organization that are completely stacked with the top prospects. Like, they've got guys like Josue DePaula, right? Who I don't know if he'll be given an opportunity to compete for a spot or not because they're so stacked. They've got Kendall George. These guys would probably start on opening day in any other team. But who knows if they're going to get a spot in that roster. But regardless, their system is completely stacked. It's not like they need prospects, or it's not like they've lost prospects when they improve their rosters by signing these guys. They're just stacked the whole way through. There's the Dodgers on all fronts, and then there's everybody else. So something has to be done, I think, just to even things out, because the gap is just getting too huge right now. I hope somebody, you know, brings them down a peg. I hope it's my Blue Jays eventually in the World Series. But we'll see. There's good teams, there's good lineups, there's good systems, and then there's the Dodgers, which are entirely on the next level. And is that fair? I don't think so. Is it good for baseball? No, I don't really feel it is. How about you, Jesse? Any thoughts on that?
No, I'm in full agreement with Chris. To be honest with you, I do believe that there needs to be at least a salary floor for some of these smaller teams to spend, maybe around the ballpark of 175 million to start, maybe 200 million as a dream, essentially. But some of these smaller markets do have to spend. To be honest with you, because a lot of them are are just not competing in any shape or form. I mean, when I look here at the payroll list, which I've just pulled up now, there are 11 teams that are below $175 million. That includes the Athletics, that includes the Reds, that includes the Brewers, even the Rockies, of course. That even includes the Pittsburgh Pirates. These teams need to spend. These teams absolutely must spend, to be honest with you. And it's not fair that some of these owners are essentially cheaping out on fans of a good product. Now, at the same time, with regards to a salary cap, unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen for a while if we want to be realistic. But given the fact that the Dodgers are basically buying up everybody and their payroll is $411 million and they have essentially no limit whatsoever, that's ruining. I wouldn't say that's completely ruining the game, but it's definitely not a really fair advantage. Now, are they doing it within the rules? Manfred says so, and I have to agree with Manfred on that. But the thing is that all of these teams, there's two aspects to it. Number one, those owners aren't spending. The cheaper owners are not spending. And number two, the owners that do want to spend will spend as much as they can and blow right past the tax thresholds. So that's the other thing. So we'll have to see what happens with the CBA discussions. But I definitely believe that you're going to see probably a salary floor at the end of it, at the very least. But that's my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. And I am thankful, Detroit Tigers, they did not move, well, so far anyway. Tariq Skubal, there's no talk of him going to the Dodgers. Thank goodness. I'm hopeful that that doesn't happen or anything of the sort. Now, Steve Cohen last week definitely went out and made a huge move by acquiring Freddie Peralta. So Cohen was not to be outdone. Some massive spending on the part of the New York Mets, right? So you've got the Mets with some massive moves and the Dodgers with some massive moves in terms of signings. Now, my rant was essentially to silence Tariq Skubal trade talk, because I think he's going to be with the Tigers for the duration of 2026, and I'm predicting that they will compete with a combination of young players, studs who are coming up, Kevin McGonigal being one, who will probably fight for a spot on opening day. He should start at shortstop on opening day, depending on where they want to put Sweeney, I suppose. And that middle infield is looking strong, really strong, right? Now, Max Clark is also knocking on the door as a top prospect as well. So Detroit has some great prospects. They don't really need to ramp up their system any further by letting go of Tariq Skubal, because if they did let go of him now, it would essentially be maybe one major league player, average major league player, and a handful of prospects. And Detroit, as of right now, they don't need that. They don't need that. They've got the core players to compete in 2026. So go for it in 2026. Hang on to Tariq Skubal. Offer him that extension. It's probably not going to take it. But I'd like to see Detroit really compete in that Central Division and get a playoff spot again with manager AJ Hinch. And with the core players that they have and Skubal, I could see that happening. So that's my rant. And that's a bit of a segue that moves into some of the shakeup that we've seen with certain organizations and some pitching staffs that have really loaded up on the front end. Really loaded up on the front end. And we've now got in the American League some contending teams with 1 through 3 absolute studs, right? They've got aces 1 through 3, and sometimes even with number 4. And then, they've got options in terms of the back end of the starting rotation. And our teams, well, I think the Red Sox definitely fit that description. I would say the Blue Jays definitely fit that description. The Yankees, well, there's definitely question marks like you've alluded to, Jesse. But that brings us to our next piece. If we were to really kind of rank the pitching staffs of MLB as of right now, heading into the pitchers and catchers reporting for spring training, who are you looking at as being the best? As being the best in terms of 1 through 3? I think we're all probably in agreement of who number 1 is, but 2 or 3 should be an interesting conversation as I see it. What are you thinking, Jesse, in terms of your order?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm going to start with number 3. I was actually struggling between the Seattle Mariners and the Boston Red Sox for this particular spot because both both starting rotations are relatively well. With the Red Sox, you have Garrett Crochet, you have Peyton Toll coming up, you have Connolly Early coming up, you also have Ranger Suarez, who's the newest one. So you have a lot, and Sonny Gray too. So that's going to be interesting. However, I do believe that maybe Connolly Early might start in AAA unless they really want to call him up and do like what they see in camp. Whereas with the Seattle Mariners, I think that their rotation might be a little more sturdy. And why do I say that? It's their number 4 spot. Whereas if Connolly Early is not in that number 4 spot at the start of the season, I think that they are the number 4. Whereas with the Mariners, their number 4 is George Kirby because of how good their rotation likely is. Now, let's just break down that one just really quickly. You have Brian Wu, who was very good last year, and you have Logan Gilbert as the 1-2 punch. Wu has a devastating fastball, a 153 average, 95 strikeouts, only limited to 14 home runs, which is great, and a 5% walk rate, which is fantastic for any pitcher.
So
with Gilbert, it's even better.
You got Wu over Kirby in the number 1?
Yes, I have Brian Wu starting over Kirby in the number 1 for the Mariners, to be honest with you. I think Brian Wu has earned that title to be the ace of this team. Okay. With Logan Gilbert, with Logan Gilbert, he's got a whiff of 32 and a strikeout ratio of 32% and a 6% walk rate with a devastating splitter finger with a 119 average with 90 strikeouts. Castillo, he has aged a little bit. Some of his stuff has not been as elite as it was previously 3, 4, 5 years ago, but he still gets the job done. And Kirby, yes, I believe he is undervalued by teams. He has strong strikeout to walk rates. He does have an effective fastball, but I do think he does need to redevelop a secondary pitch. With his slider, it was 276. With the sinker, it was 309. So I think there needs to be at least a little bit more development on that front. But that 1 through 4, I think, is just slightly barely edges out in terms of where we're going right now with the American League. Now, with number 2, in the American League, this was really close. I'm going to be honest with you. And I'm going based on everything that I've seen. I'm going based on everything that I know. I'm going based on everything that I researched with regards to this. And I try to be as very non-biased as possible. And I am being completely honest here. I did have the Blue Jays at number 2. And let me explain why. You can argue that it's a toss-up with the Yankees, to be honest with you. But it's a strong rotation to begin with. Gausman, most effective fastball off-speed combination in the majors with a 4-seam split finger that could wreck a lineup. I mean, between those, that's a 215 batting average and a 185 strikeouts. That's a great combination to have. Very fantastic. Same thing with Shane Bieber. Now, he is facing his first season since 2023, first full season since 2023. He was effective in Toronto, 49% ground ball rate. Does his arm hold up after all of these issues with, going back and forth with recovery from Tommy John, recovering from injury, so on and so forth? We'll see what happens. Now, with Dylan Cease, everybody loves Dylan Cease. I think Dylan Cease is a very strong pitcher. We saw it with Chicago. We saw it with San Diego. Now, there are a little few warning signs that I do want to point out. He does have a 10% walk rate, and he does have a 37% ground ball rate, and he does have a declining fastball value. But he does still hold strong strikeout, whiff, and chase rates. His slider did lose efficiency. It bounced from 159 to 228 in 2025 with a small decline in whiff, but he is able to reinvent that pitch. He could be really good. Now, as for Trey Savage, who we all drooled over essentially in the postseason, this will be his first full season. So we have to see exactly what happens with regards to that. But I still think Savage is a very good pitcher. The question is what does it look like when he hits June and July if he's in the starting rotation at the start of the season? How well does he hold up? Is he injured? Is he declining? We'll have to see what happens. Now, number 1, when this lineup is healthy, it is number 1. When this rotation is healthy, it's number 1. That would be the Yankees. And why do I explain that? Well, why do I say that? Let me explain. Well, again, it might be 2 or 3 now, given the injuries to Garrett Cole, Carlos Rodon, and Clark Schmidt recovering from Tommy John. But the same arguments as Toronto, like I said, Cole's returning from injury, Slittler getting longer action with his fastball and cutter, which is very good, and Rodon having a bounce-back season with a high strikeout whiff rate, 9% walk rate, didn't surrender many hits, good slider at 133 average. And you also have Max Fried. who could be argued as a candidate for Cy Young this year if he continues his great performance that he did last year. 52% ground ball rate. He is low on chase and strikeouts, but he is really, really good when he is on the ball. When they do get Carlos Rodon back, when they do get Garrett Cole back, I think this is at least a solid 2, if not a number 1, if everybody's firing on the same front. The only question is Cam Schlittler, or the only 2 questions is Cam Schlittler. How long does he fare? Kind of the same question as your Savage, but also who would be their number 5th starter? Is it going to be Ryan Weathers that they just acquired? Is it going to be Luis Heel? Is it going to be somebody new out of camp? We have to know. We don't know exactly, but we will figure out once we get out of camp. But that's my list right now. Mariners, Blue Jays, and Yankees when they are all healthy. Right now, at this particular moment, I would say it's Mariners, Yankees, Blue Jays, just given their bill of health.
All right. Well, I was not expecting that at number 1, but you know what? I agree with you. I think when the Yankees, if healthy, I mean, if you love baseball, you want to see Garrett Cole pitching. Garrett Cole is a phenomenal pitcher. He was on a Hall of Fame trajectory, and you don't want to see guys like that hurt. I thought Garrett Cole had a rubber arm. Honestly, I thought he was going to go forever without injury. And now that he's been on the IL a couple of times, and he's what, 35 years old, or he'll be 36 next season, I think,
Yes.
right, in 2026. So
Yep.
I'm hopeful that Garrett Cole has, like at the tail end of his career, similar to, Justin Verlander, that he's got 3, maybe 4 solid seasons left in that arm, because I love watching Garrett Cole pitch. And obviously he's got, generational type stuff, right? So having a rotation with Garrett Cole and Schlittler and Max Fried and Clark Schmidt, if healthy, that's pretty dangerous, right? No team would want to face those 4 when they're in top form, right? And Carlos Rodon, of course.
Yes.
So, yeah, interesting list. Honestly, I was not expecting Yankees to be at the top, but when you factor everything in, if they're healthy, yeah, very, very awesome, impressive rotation. How about you, Chris? Anything to add to those, or did you have a different list? Chris, what does your list look like, Chris?
He might be muted a little bit, I think.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll go next then. I also had the Blue Jays, but I had them at number 2. Even if you Savage, Chris, you there? Yeah. Even if you Savage,
in and out of losing connection. I apologize.
that's okay. Even if Trey Savage needs some fine tuning in Buffalo, which, to be honest, right? I mean, the pressure should be taken off of him a little bit. He's already had a legendary playoff performance, right? He's earned his keep with the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, at the age of 22, I guess he'll be 23 this year. He's still super young. If he needs some fine tuning in the bullpen, even if he has to go back to AAA for a period of time, that is totally fine, because the depth on the Toronto Blue Jays rotation is ridiculous. Ridiculous 1 through 5. They've got Gosman, they've got Bieber, as you mentioned, they've got Dylan Cease, they've got Cody Ponce, who probably should compete for the starting rotation job. We did not mention Jose Barrios, who will start. He will be in the rotation at some point in 2026. Eric Lauer was amazingly effective in a key number 4 or 5 role last year with the Jays down the stretch. He's going to compete for a spot in the rotation. Then there's also Bowden Francis. So even without you Savage, you're talking about 6 competent guys, all competing for a spot. I mean, 1 through 3 and 1 through 4 is totally locked down with the acquisitions that they've made. Savage should be one of those guys, but he doesn't have to be. He absolutely does not have to be. So there's a little bit of pressure taken off of him, which I love. That's a beautiful thing. So yeah, I had the Jays also at number 2. I had the Red Sox at number 3 because they've got Crochet, Suarez, Sonny Gray, who I believe is still an awesome pitcher. They've got Brian Bayo number 4, and then they've got either Cutter Crawford or Patrick Sandoval. They've got options to number 5 as well. And Sandoval is a highly effective pitcher if he's healthy as well. Now, I also had as a fringe number 3 The Texas Rangers, right? They've got DeGrom. You know DeGrom's going to be good. He seems to be back to form. Evaldi, he's going to put in the innings, Nathan Evaldi. And then they've got Mackenzie Gore, who they just acquired, right? And Mackenzie Gore was a stud with the Nationals. With some run support, they've got kind of a revamped lineup, the Texas Rangers do. They can hit, right? So they will compete in that NL West, and Mackenzie Gore is a strikeout machine. So he hasn't quite hit his prime yet, and I could see him, well above 200 strikeouts if he can get up to that 180, between 180 and 200 inning mark with 30 plus starts, and he should have that as a number 3 guy in that rotation. And they've also got Leiter, right? What's Al Leiter's son name? It's not Mark Leiter. What's Al Leiter's
Jack
son's
Leiter?
name? Jack Leiter, of course, as well as Kumar Rocker, right? Those guys will each compete for a spot at the back end of that rotation. So the Rangers are looking pretty stacked. But beyond all that, we're not talking about the elephant in the room as far as pitching rotations go. And that has to be the Dodgers, right? It's got to be. You got Yamamoto, Snell, Glasnow, Otani, and then it looks like they're going to bring Sasaki no longer out. They're going to bring him out of that closer role, obviously, because they've got Nate Diaz, a proven closer at the back end of the bullpen. So now Sasaki steps in as the number 5 starter, potentially, or they've got Gavin Stone. They got Gavin Stone coming back, and he was highly effective before he went on the IL for 2025. So they've got options at the back end as well. So I'm looking at these rotations, the top ranked ones, as being super strong 1 through 4, and then having plenty of options with that number 5 rule. I also have the Pirates, in the conversation for the top 3 potentially, but they're mainly strong just 1 through 3. Beyond that, there's too many question marks. So anyway, that was my list. I don't know if you guys want to chime in with that.
Well, let me just chime in with this. The list I just gave, that was my American League list. I didn't even factor in the National League. I had the Mets at 3, actually.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Sure.
Yeah, I organized it like that. So I had the Mets at 3 in the National League. There's for one reason. Freddie Peralta, with the recent trade for Freddie Peralta. Of course, he automatically takes that ace spot, no question whatsoever. And helps take pressure off of Noah McLean to perform. And Noah McLean is a really good pitching prospect. He was really good during his time with the Mets last year. Now, Peralta, again, did struggle with chase rates and being a ground ball pitcher, but he's still a very, very strong pitcher with regards to strikeouts. That's not even a question whatsoever. And McLean has a strong fastball and a devastating curveball combo on a small sample size. It's small, but it shows that he's really ready to blossom at the major league level. Now, Kodai Senga, if he can stay healthy, he can definitely be more effective for this rotation, and that's not even a question. He has a great forkball. Not only a fastball, but a forkball, which you don't really see in this league, unfortunately.
It's one of the best pitches in MLB. It's one of the most lethal pitches in the sport. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And don't forget, you still have Jonah Tong, who could redevelop himself at AAA. He was really good at AAA last year, but he struggled at the major league level. So if he gets a little bit more seasoning at AAA, he could probably be ready by May or June, depending on what happens. Now, with number 2, I have the Chicago Cubs, believe it or not. I passed over the Phillies because they just lost Ranger Suarez, and we're not sure about Zach Wheeler. That's the other thing. So I have the Chicago Cubs here. Matthew Boyd, strong pitcher, but he'll likely be knocked off the ace spot when Cade Horton is really functioning at its prime. Boyd still holds a low walk rate, 29% chase rate, 3 effective pitches, fastball, changeup, slider combination, which is always a classic combination for pitchers to go to. But Cade Horton,
what steals status for next year? Is he going to report to camp?
I believe he will report. He is still on the IL. I'm not sure what his timeline is, but it will likely be possibly around the All-Star break, either before or afterwards. That's the thing. So what we're looking at right now is a lineup without Justin Steele, or a rotation without Justin Steele. When Justin Steele comes back, we have to see how he does, especially in his rehab starts, before he gets to the major league level. Whether or not he does good in his rehab starts, that's a telling sign. But right now, Cade Horton right now, Matthew Boyd at this moment, without Justin Steele, is the ace of the team until Cade Horton develops. Now,
Yeah.
Cade Horton, I think he has Cy Young potential. I think he was really good last year. I think his sweeper and changeup are fantastic. 48% whiff rate on changeups, which is great. And if he develops his fastball alongside his sweeper, that would be a big time jump for him. And he would likely be a Cy Young contender in 2026 if he makes that jump. You still have Shota Imanaga, and you just got Edward Cabrera, who was a nice pickup for that back end of the rotation, especially when Justin Steele comes back. That's the other thing. He dropped his fastball completely, Edward Cabrera, and essentially just basically switched to breaking and off-speed pitches, and you saw some of his metrics go up. So it was a nice pickup. And, of course, I have the Dodgers at number one. I don't think there's any question to it. I think you've explained every point really well with the Dodgers, but that's my National League list. But when you combine the lists together, I would have the Dodgers at number one. I would have the Blue Jays at number two, the Yankees at three, the Cubs, to be honest with you, I think I have them, or I have the Mariners at four, the Cubs at five, and the Mets at six. So those are my top six in terms of the starting pitching rotations that I have.
Yeah, absolutely. And, really, when teams experience a jolt in offense, obviously it picks up the entire team, and obviously it helps out, takes the pressure off the pitchers, right? So the pitchers get better with an infusion of offense. And definitely in the case of the Cubs, they're going to see an infusion of offense, right? With Bregman now in that lineup, that's a huge pickup for them. So, I mean, they lost Tucker, but they picked up Bregman. So Bregman is inserted into the middle of that lineup. So, the Cubs will definitely contend next year. And very, very strong rotation. I'm glad you mentioned them, Jesse.
And actually, just as a little update, I just checked here. Justin Steele is not only ahead of schedule, he's actually thrown a bullpen session 2 weeks ago for the first time since his surgery. So he might be coming back a little bit sooner than what they were expecting. So we'll see what happens on that front.
Yeah, absolutely. Khris, anything more to add with the ratings, or did you have a team or a staff that you wanted to insert into the conversation?
I have no idea. I apologize. I don't know if you're talking to me or not, but I can only hear Jesse. I can't hear Doug at all.
I can hear Doug just fine.
Doug. For some reason. Yeah,
So,
I
Jesse,
know.
do you
I don't
want
know what's going on. I'm having all sorts of weird technical issues going on.
Jesse,
so I just wanted to just really quickly pop in and just say that I mostly agree with what you guys have talked about. For me, for the AL, I was just going to say my top three are probably I have Boston at 3, Toronto at 2, and Seattle at 1. I don't have the Yankees in the top 3 specifically because of some of their injuries, and I'm not fully convinced of the back end of that. I think what the Red Sox have over the Yankees in that regard is the insane amount of depth that they have. I mean, Doug was talking about it a bit, with Cutter Crawford and Patrick Sandoval. You were talking about Connolly early and Peyton Toll, and none of us mentioned Johan Oviedo, who was actually an acquisition for us as well. Somebody that it sounds like Breslow thinks he sees some stuff in, and some of his outlying advanced metrics have actually looked really good in recent years. It hasn't necessarily resulted in the numbers that he was hoping to see completely, but it sounds like Breslow has some hope for him too. So that right there is 9 major league caliber arms, 4 of which have been within 3 to 3.5 ERAs over the last couple years. Bayo really figuring it out last year. Obviously, we know Gray and Ranger Suarez and Crochet are already established. So that's why I have the Red Sox over the Yankees for that. And then in the National League, I pretty much agree with what y'all were saying too, at least as far as what I could hear. I don't know if I have a specific 1, 2, 3 as much, but I still think even with the loss of Ranger Suarez, I have the Phillies in that conversation, of course. I do have, obviously, LA as the number one, pretty clear number one, because they're going to be pretty much number one in just about everything. We already talked about it in my rant. So I mean, that is what it is. And I think that the Cubs are also a team that could be sneaky good and with their rotation as well this year. So those are the three that I'm sort of watching the most from the National League. I think there's some other teams that have some intriguing pieces, but I want to see them put it all together and see. I mean, obviously, like the Pittsburgh Pirates are a team that could very well be there. I just think they're so young that I don't want to declare them the top three until I see them all together for a full season and see what they can do. Teams like that I think could very well end up there by the end of the year, but I'm not ready to put them there yet. So.
Yeah, so it seems most teams were looking to amp up or at least improve their starting rotations throughout the course of the offseason. But I know with the Blue Jays, our area of need was more with the bullpen in some cases. I'll explain that later on. But we're going to dive into the bullpen now. And just speaking to our specific teams or the teams that we follow, how would you grade your bullpen heading into 2026? Do you think you guys kind of upgraded? Is there still a need in certain areas as far as the bullpen goes? How would you speak to your bullpen? So we'll start with you, Jesse, with the Yankees. I would think there's some holes in the bullpen with the Yankees that still need to be addressed.
I agree with you, to be 100% honest. I think that there's a lot of issues with that bullpen. Now, I think it's mainly in the back end of the bullpen rather than the front end of the bullpen, whereas the front end, I say that's your closer, that's your setup utilities guys. David Bednar is the closer for this team, and there's no question about it. Last year, we were having the discussion with regards to who the closer would be because the Yankees traded for three relievers in Bednar, Camilo Doval, and then Jake Bird. I don't think Jake Bird's going to be much of a factor, and he might even be sent down to the minors for after camp. And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think Jake Bird is a good fit for the Yankees because don't forget, right after they traded for him, he melted down twice, lost 2 games with them, or essentially lost 1 game, and then caused the Yankees to lose another game right on top of that in the span of 3 days, was sent down back to AAA, and he struggled at AAA. He was awful at AAA, unfortunately. So I don't think Jake Bird's going to be much of a factor. Bednar, I think he's a very good closer when he is operating at a very high level. We saw it with the Yankees last year when Devin Williams was struggling. Bednar stepped up, and he helped close some games, especially in the playoffs, too, during the wild card series. Camilo Doval, we didn't see a lot of action from him last year, but when we did see him, he was either good or bad. But when you do look at his statistics overall, he is a little bit of a walk risk. He has a 4.27 walk over 9 innings pitched rate, but he can still get strikeouts as well. When he is operating at a very good level, he is your setup man. Now, they also do have Fernando Cruz, who the Yankees got in 2024 as a setup man as well. I think that Tim Hill could be their lefty setup man or possibly a mid reliever. Tim Hill was relatively well. They also have other guys like Paul Blackburn, who was not really good either. They're with the Mets at least, and Ryan Yarbrough, who was actually surprisingly good as a lefty specialist. And yeah, he was a good lefty specialist, and he is coming back to the Yankees for at least another year. So that's the other thing. Now, with regards to the front end of the bullpen, I don't think that there should be any changes. Bednar is good. Doval could be very good. Fernando Cruz or Tim Hill are fine options. It's the back of that bullpen. Jake Bird was not really good, and Paul Blackburn, I think, was possibly even worse than Jake Bird, to be honest with you. And that's a bit of a statement, to be honest with you. They do have Cade Winquist as a long reliever at a per Fangraphs. Now, whether you put stock into that or not, I don't know, but that's what they have right now. But they do have a couple of options that will be coming up around the pipe soon. They do have Elmer Rodriguez, who might get a start in the bullpen if he continues his dominant form in AAA. They might bring up Brent Hidrick. They might bring up Brendan Beck, who's 27, though, and he's been waiting a long time for a start at the major league level. And he was really good, actually, at AAA. And they might finally give him a chance in the bullpen, especially if either Jake Bird or Paul Blackburn struggle and they have to cut them, or send them back to the minors. We'll see what happens with that. But I'm confident about the front end of that bullpen with the closing situation, the setup situation. But if a starter cannot last more than 4 innings, that's where I have the concern. I think maybe one more signing from the free agent pool might help. Maybe you have a reunion with Tommy Kangley. Maybe you go ahead and get maybe a small time reliever. I do believe that there are a couple of other options there out in the wild. Of course, you can't get the high end guys anymore. They've all been signed. But with regards to a reunion with Tommy Kangley, maybe that's the option you want to go. Maybe, again, a small time arm just to help get through the first half of the season. Not sure about it, but I would be concerned about the middle part of that bullpen if I'm the Yankees. I'm looking for other guys, or I'm looking for internal solutions.
Yeah, that definitely seemed to, those problems certainly surfaced in the playoffs at times last year for the Yankees. I think Hill was overworked.
Yep.
I think Cruz was
Yes.
overworked.
Mhm.
Duvall, I thought, well, during the regular season anyway, would have competed for that closer role, but Bednar, as you said,
Yes.
seemed to really emerge. And he has that credibility as a proven closer with the Pirates, right? He just kind of had that one
Yep.
little off skid, but we're now seeing the David Bednar of old returning to form. So that's exciting for Yankees
Yes.
fans. But yeah, I guess that long relief role is a bit of an anomaly for a lot of clubs, right? You're hoping that your starters go 5 and 6, but if they don't, some teams are in a lot of trouble between that fourth inning and then the back end of the bullpen, right? There's just a big kind of void there. A lot of teams have that problem. So,
Yes.
Chris, how about the bullpen for the Red Sox? What about Chapman? What's going on with Chapman? And how's the back end looking? Do you want to comment on that? Or maybe
Oh, he
you
might
could
have dropped off, I think.
maybe you could try and cue him on that, Jesse, about the Red Sox bullpen, see if he
Yeah.
responds. Otherwise, I'll just speak to the Jays.
Yeah, no problem. Chris, what are your thoughts on the current situation of the Red Sox bullpen, if you're there? Yeah, he might have dropped
If
off,
you can hear me,
Okay.
unfortunately.
I hope you can
Oh,
hear
there he
me.
is.
Yep.
I am here. I apologize. I don't know what's going on with my connection. I really apologize. I can't hear
It's
Doug.
okay.
I
It's
can
okay,
only hear
buddy.
you, Jesse. But yeah, I would actually say the Red Sox bullpen is probably the best in the division right now, at least in my opinion. It certainly was, in my opinion, last year. It ended up a major strength, which is interesting, obviously, because a few years before that, it was a bullpen that was probably the biggest weakness for the Red Sox. And they blew a ton of games, and it was sort of a major sticking point going into last year. And we went out and we didn't do all that much last year outside of Aroldis Chapman, but it seemed like everything kind of stabilized and Breslow was able to find the arms that was necessary. And now this year, I think a few of those pitchers we were talking about being being in the rotation, are probably going to land themselves in the bullpen just for sheer fact of not having enough starting roles and them not really being able to be sent back down to AAA at this point. Guys like Cutter Crawford and Patrick Sandoval. So I think that's going to strengthen the depth there as well. I will say the one thing that I caution with the Red Sox is Aroldis Chapman. He's not going to be what he was last, in my opinion. There's going to be some regression there. He was one of the best in the game last year. And just at his age, I don't see that staying. I think he's going to regress a little bit. I still think he's going to be great, but I think he's going to regress a little bit. I think a little bit more on top at the end of the games, which could sort of shift around the overall sort of back end a little bit. I look at it because last season, the I'd argue with lockdown. If you got into the back end of that Red Sox bullpen, and then they had the lead, they by and large weren't giving it up, especially in the second half of the year. And I expect that to be pretty similar this year, with the addition of some added middle relief. What's interesting is they just moved Jordan Hicks, who arguably could have been part of that bullpen today. So I'm curious to see, what the next move is. Does that mean they're going to go get another bullpen arm? Does that mean that they're making room for guys like Cutter Crawford, like we just talked about. And then they're also making room for a second baseman, which obviously is still one of the biggest needs. And I have some thoughts on that for the Red Sox as well. We'll see. But I definitely have far more confidence in the Red Sox bullpen than I have at any point in time over the last several years. So maybe I should be scared of that. Maybe that means they're going to regress a ton. But I think that's one of their biggest strengths. And I think it's a strength that Breslo's really been harping on is pitching and defense. And I think he's really shown that over the last couple of years. And I think that the pitching staff has gone from one of the biggest weaknesses to one of the biggest strengths. And that's a testimony to how Breslo's been building this team. And so I expect that to continue this season for sure.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's just your offense is going to have to really live up to expectations. I think they will. I mean, Roman Anthony will be inserted into the middle of that lineup. So as will probably Marcelo Mayer. And you've got some pop, some young pop, the Red Sox do. So as long as they've got some leads, then I think the bullpen, as you alluded to, Khris, will really have no problem holding on to those leads, the Red Sox. So the questions really don't lie with the pitching. And the pitching seems to be where that front office wants to build. I don't know if that's kind of the default mechanism. I don't know if they had some of the big name free agents on their list first and foremost. And then since they couldn't go after those guys, ultimately they focused only on pitching. Maybe that's the case with the Red Sox. But at any rate, the pitching, they've definitely improved. So the question, like I said, is really just with the Red Sox offense because they've got pitching covered, it looks like. As for the Blue Jays, our bullpen, well, the Blue Jays had a huge area of need in that they were just giving up bombs in 2025. Now, they had a great team, but the home run ball, they were super susceptible to that, especially with the bullpen. Workhorse Louis Varland led MLB in appearances. He was great, but he gave up a lot of bombs as well, right? So they needed guys who are going to keep the ball in the ballpark. So they went out and got Tyler Rogers, who was highly effective with the Mets, and they also got Chase Lee. Both of those guys are ground ball specialists. And with the defense that the Blue Jays have, especially in the infield, although their outfield defense is great too, they are going to just eat up those ground balls. So those two guys alone, Rogers and Lee, with their additions, the Blue Jays have greatly improved their bullpen. Now, also coming back is Jimmy Garcia, who has always been reliable in the Blue Jays bullpen, loves playing in Toronto. So they picked him up to kind of complement Varland so that Varland doesn't have to do it all in that setup role, right? So we've got some long guys as also with Cody Ponce and maybe Eric Lauer taking on the role in long relief. So they've got options in long relief, and they've got some role guys in terms of high leverage now. So Jeff Hoffman returns. They've got a lot of faith in him in the closer role. He gave up home runs in key high leverage situations, but the pressure is going to be taken off of him with the additions that this front office, Shapiro and Atkins, have made. So, they've really rounded out the bullpen with the acquisitions made over this offseason. And I think the Jays have really addressed those needs. So, I think this team overall in 26 is going to be better. However, the entire AL East is going to be better in 26. So we'll see how this pans out. But as far as the bullpen goes, I don't think that's a weakness for the Blue Jays. It may even be a strength. So that's my assessment of the Blue Jays. Anything to add on that?
I'll add to a little bit on that. To be honest with you, I think Kaufman, he was very volatile at points, but he calmed down during the postseason at least a little bit and did help that almost incredible World Series. It was an incredible run, regardless in the postseason.
Yeah, it was.
Retaining Yimi Garcia obviously is a must. Getting Tyler Rogers, I was not expecting, to be honest with you, but that's definitely a plus for this team with the with the delivery that he has. I believe that's the same one, if I'm not
It is.
mistaken.
Yeah,
Uh,
they both
the
got the
submarine, yeah,
sinker.
the
Lee,
submarine.
yeah, Lee and Rogers both have that funky sidearm delivery. In fact, Rogers was the lowest release point in MLB last year, and Savage was the
Yes.
highest. So they've got that 12 and 6 angle totally covered, so to say,
Yes,
so to speak.
definitely. Definitely. And just having those two guys with their submarine deliveries is very good because you don't really see a lot of submarine deliveries in the MLB at all, to be honest with you. Seeing them on the same team two in a row, maybe,
Yeah,
one night
crazy.
it's Rogers or the other night it's a little big thing. And still having Louis Varland, Brendan Little, and Tommy Nance, and a couple other guys hopefully coming up the pipeline that you might see help rotate around, like Mason Flaherty, maybe Brandon Fisher as well. We'll see what happens with those guys, but definitely that bullpen, I would say, is stronger than the Yankees and might be one of the top ones or the most underrated one in baseball at the moment.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. All right. Well, we're going to move on just quickly to the backstop. Who's your pick? We're getting tight on time here at the end of the Dirty Leather Baseball Hour. But, it's pitchers and catchers that are reporting. Now, who's the backstop that really stands out to you as kind of steering the ship, navigating that rotation? Who do you see as doing that, better
Yep.
than most in MLB, Jesse?
I mean, there's really not any question, to be honest with you. Just overall performance, it's got to be Cal Raleigh. I
Yeah.
mean, you don't really see a lot of catchers hit 60 home runs. Number one, you don't see a lot of players hit 60 home runs that often. Not since the 90s, at least. But you also have to take into account his defense and his framing as well. Even though he might not be the best at blocking pitches when they're in the dirt, his framing is great, and his arm is actually not that terrible, to be honest with you. So the other thing you have to take into consideration is that you don't see a lot of catchers have both the defense and the offensive aspects both owned at the same time. Usually it's a good defensive catcher, not a really good hitter, or a really good hitter and not the greatest defensive catcher. Just having those two alone synced up is really good. So,
Mhm.
and the other thing we have to watch is whether or not he does it again this year, whether it's 40 home runs, 50 home runs, even goes to 60 home runs again. We'll have to see, but that's the benchmark for the catchers, and that's the leader in all the backstops. There's no real question about that. Seattle's got a really good player, and that's why they traded away Harry Ford. Callaway's not going away from the backstop anytime soon.
Yeah.
So that's your guy, to be honest with you. And there's really nothing else that I would rather have than watching Cal Raleigh on any team perform the way he has.
Mhm. Cool. Well, I'm gonna go outside the box here now. Alejandro Kirk has been an amazing catcher, all-star catcher for the Blue Jays. He's a great receiver. He throws guys out. But as far as receivers and defensive catchers go, Patrick Bailey. Patrick Bailey is an amazing pitch caller for the San Francisco Giants. And he is so respected across MLB. Now, I know Buster Posey really wants to build a resurgence in San Francisco, and he has so much faith in Patrick Bailey as his everyday starting catcher. And I've just heard great things, and haven't watched a lot of him, but he is a Gold Glove catcher, right, in the NL. And Patrick Bailey is he's just a great signal caller and a great receiver. So offensively, not great, but in terms of a pitch caller, he makes a difference in
Yep.
San Francisco. So I'm going to go
Yes.
outside the box and just kind of select Bailey as a difference maker in the catcher role. How about you, Khris? Any catchers that stand out for you? All right, so we'll move
Yeah.
on from we'll move on
No,
from
no.
Khris. Go ahead, unless you want to
Right.
add something else, Jesse.
No, I was just going to relay the message to Chris to see if he had any comment on who the best catcher is, regardless outside of Raleigh and Bailey. So who would be his pick?
Yeah, so for me, and this is definitely a homer pick, but I think he's incredibly slept on, and that's Carlos Narvaez, who we got from the Yankees last year. And so his defense has never been a question. He's one of the best defensive catchers in the game, and it's severely underrated one at that, in my opinion. The question and the reason the Yankees sort of gave him up was the question about his offense. You know, we didn't know if he was going to hit. And as it turns out, he can hit, and he can hit pretty well. And when you put that together, in my opinion, he rockets to one of the best in the league. I mean, I don't think there's any question right now that Riley is the best. So I'm really looking at the best of the rest, and I think Carlos Narvaez definitely deserves to be in that conversation, especially if he can keep up what he did last year, especially at the beginning of last year and middle of last year. If he can keep that up for the duration of this year, I think he'll make people take notice of him. That maybe he's still flying a bit under the radar right now, but if he does it again this year, I don't think he will after that. So that's my, I guess, sleeper pick to watch for is one of the best in the league, and I get it, it's a homer pick because it's the Red Sox, but I just think people sleep on him a lot more than they should.
Yeah. I think it's so important to have that solid everyday backstop for a team to contend, though, I think, right? I mean, even the Dodgers, right, with Will Smith, outstanding catcher, not the greatest defensively, but an awesome signal caller and, you know, provided elite offense as well, right? But the great teams seem to have that mainstay and that leader behind the plate. So it's a really important thing, right? Now, just as a final comment or a final piece here for the Dirty Leather Hour, we were going to have some closing remarks. We talked about the Mets acquisitions, but let's predict the final pitcher on the board, the final, you know, frontline ace type pitcher on the free agent board would be Framber Valdez. Now, there have been some questions about his character, and maybe that's why he's still on the board, but there's no doubt, no question that Framber Valdez is an impact starting pitcher. So where do you think he's going to go? Jesse, what's your call for that one?
I'm gonna be honest with you. A lot of analysts have been saying the Orioles. I agree with that 100%. I think Valdez will end up as an Oriole, mainly because number one, at this point, it would be a steal in terms of his contract, and number two, the Orioles still need a frontline starter. Trevor Rogers is good, but I don't think he's an ace. Valdez would be the ace of the team, at least until somebody else pops up. But you know, with regards to his character issues, that could possibly be worked out with a change of scenery. Who knows? But I still believe he would be an Oriole at the end of the day, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, I wrote a piece earlier in the week for Stadium Rant on Tampa Bay's revamped rotation. Well, it's revamped because Shane McClanahan hopefully is coming in and stepping in as that ace. And he is a dominant left-hander, right? And then you got Ryan Pepio, who would slide into the number 2 slot. He'll be much better as a number 2 starter. And then Drew Rasmussen. Now, I'd love to see Framber Valdez go to Tampa Bay. You know, they're returning to the Trop. I'd like to see Tampa Bay kind of, you know, just offer him something. Go out on a limb and offer a contract to an established starter. You know, they brought in some leadership with Cedric Mullins. Let's see some leadership, or maybe some tenure at least, some proven tenure and credibility on the pitching side. Come into that Tampa Bay clubhouse with Framber Valdez. Now, he could go there, and then, of course, the Mets might swoop in and grab him and throw a contract number at him that he can't refuse. So those are my 2 possible takers, the Rays and the Mets. I hope it's not the Mets. Chris, any takers for Framber Valdez? You want to cue
Chris,
him
who
there,
do you
Jesse?
think's going to be? Yeah, I gotcha. Who do you think's going to be the winner of the Valdez sweepstakes, the Framber Valdez sweepstakes?
Yeah, so I think Baltimore makes the most sense as a team that's really still looking for pitching. But I said it a few weeks ago, and I'm going to stick by it. I think the San Francisco Giants are a sleeper to come in there and get him. I'm not entirely sure why my gut tells me that, but for some reason it just keeps coming to that. So I'm gonna stick with my pick. I'm gonna stick with the Giants until I'm proven wrong. so that's my guess. I just think that much like Craig Breslow, I think that Buster Posey is big on the pitching and defense and building that with San Francisco, and I think it fits, you know, their whole system well, and I think that somebody like Framber Valdez would help make the Giants be in the conversation for one of the best rotations in the National League as well. And I think that would be intriguing, especially in that division where you've already got the Dodgers with the dominant rotation. You've got San Diego. I mean, took a bit of a hit losing Yu Darvish, but still definitely in the conversation, I would say, as a pretty good rotation. And even Arizona down there, had been working towards trying to get a better rotation. So I think San Francisco would love to sort of be up in that upper echelon there. So that's my prediction.
All right. So between the three of us, the consensus is Framber Valdez could go absolutely anywhere. Who knows? We'll see what happens with that. Maybe he'll go to. We'll see him in the AL East. Who knows? But really, Valdez at this point could absolutely go anywhere. Maybe even a return to Houston. We'll see. So for the Dirty Leather crew, I think that about wraps it up. Sorry about the technical difficulties tonight. It appears I am still in off-season mode. Anyhow, we will tighten it up for the start of spring training. Jesse, any further thoughts? And I guess we'll get you to shut it down from your end, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem. So I don't really have any other pressing thoughts, to be honest with you, but I would absolutely continue. If you want any surprises possibly for 2026, take a look at the Oakland Athletics, take a look at the Tampa Bay Rays, and maybe, just maybe, take a look at the Texas Rangers if they have a bounce back offense. Those are the three teams I would absolutely pay attention to. And maybe even the White Sox, because they've been spending a little bit and they did
They
get
have been.
Murakami, don't forget. They just, yeah, yep. And those are four teams I would watch with the start of spring training and seeing how they do during the offseason, or at least in the grapefruit and cactus leagues. So just pay attention to that.
All right. So signing off for Jesse, for Chris, this is Doug, the Dirty Leather crew. We'll see you next time.
Take care, everybody.